Even though the siblings had unofficially calculated their scores right after their finals, Lily Thompson still felt a knot in her stomach. On the night the results were released, the longtime mother found herself wide awake, staring at the clock as it ticked toward midnight. For someone whose internal clock was usually set in stone, this was an ungodly hour. Lily was lying on her stomach in bed, her legs bent up, feet kicking gently back and forth in the air. "Maybe we should each check one?" she asked, turning her head to face Lucas Carter. He reached out and poked her forehead gently. "That takes all the ceremony out of it. We'll look at them one by one, together." His original plan had been to gather the whole family in the living room for the big reveal, but Stella had conked out in her bed before 10. When he checked on her a few minutes ago, she was still sound asleep, completely unfazed by the impending news. Her nerves were made of steel. Seeing it was almost midnight, Lucas opened the photos on his phone. The first thing that popped up was the information for Stella's test registration. The couple decided to check hers first. Even after all these years, the university's online portal seemed designed to make people suffer, crashing and lagging for one reason or another. It wasn't until 12:30, after countless failed login attempts, that Stella's scores and final GPA finally materialized on the small screen. Lucas stared at her cumulative SAT score and froze. Holy crap, 1580. Could the Carter family really produce a genius who almost aced the SATs? He glanced over at Lily, who was rubbing her eyes furiously. Is she really my daughter?" Lily's mouth was slightly agape, her face a mask of disbelief. Lucas, who had been in a state of shock himself, nearly choked. He'd heard of men questioning a child's paternity, but this was the first time he'd ever seen a woman do it. "The kid came out of your body. How could she not be yours?" He took a couple of deep breaths and deadpanned. "That's such a dumb question. It definitely doesn't sound like something the mother of a kid with a 1580 SAT score would ask." "Hey," Lily mumbled, a little embarrassed as she bit her lip. "Well, if you think about it another way, Stella only scored about 130 points higher than you did. Doesn't that suddenly make her feel like your daughter again?" "Every point gets harder the higher you go," Lily argued, gently shaking his shoulder. "Even a genius can't just pull another 100 points out of thin air on a score like that." "Quick, check Caleb's." Caleb Carter stared at his own score, a solid 1450, and felt not so much joy as a profound sense of relief. At least he could get into the same university as his sister. As Natalie, he wasn't as brilliant as Stella, nor did he have Natalie's lifelong dedication. Only he knew what it had taken to survive his senior year. Even though finals were long over, he still had nightmares about it, waking up in a cold sweat every single time. He'd reach out, feel his soaked pillow and sheets, and force himself back to reality. He shook his head to clear it, just as a message from Natalie Miller popped up on his screen, calming his nerves instantly. "Natalie, how'd you do, little bro?" Apparently, it wasn't just him who had given up on correcting her. Natalie had given up too. "Caleb, 1450. I think I might have overperformed." "Natalie, see? I told you my brother was the best in the world." "Natalie, what about you, sis?" Natalie sent a sighing emoji. "Honestly, your sister is feeling a little defeated. Aside from piano, I've done nothing but study my whole life, and in the end, my score is only a few points higher than yours." "Caleb, that just means you're a great teacher. My English score never would have gotten this high if you hadn't tutored me." The typing bubble on his phone appeared and disappeared for a long moment before a voice message came through. All the sweet talk in the world won't get you a reward." Her voice was thick with a laugh she couldn't hold back. Caleb smiled, flopping back onto his bed and spreading his arms wide. He felt lighter than he had in years. The next morning, Lily didn't go to her shop, as usual. After calling both sets of grandparents to share the good news, she made breakfast and sat at the dining table, beaming. When she smiled, she still looked the same as she always had, a little dorky, endlessly sweet. Lucas, who never really cared about grades, was already over the initial shock and was just leaning against her, yawning. Caleb was the first one out of his room. After the brutal grind of his senior year, the kid had developed the same unshakable internal clock as Lily, late to bed, early to rise. He was still in a half-asleep daze until he spotted the thick envelope in Lily's hand. His eyes lit up, and he was instantly wide awake. Judging by its thickness, it had to contain a few $1,000s. "Mom, is that for me?" Caleb asked eagerly. He had a long summer ahead and was hoping to take his sister on a trip. "It is," Lily said, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "You worked so hard, Caleb. You've earned it." Lucas was happy for his boy, too. With Caleb's score on the board, he was no longer the one with the lowest SAT score in the family. As Caleb sat there, excitedly counting the cash, Lily asked, "Your sister tutored you for so long. Have you thought about how you're going to repay her?" Caleb looked down, thinking for a moment. He then looked up with a solemn expression. I'm going to marry her. Lily froze, then reflexively smacked him on the back of the head. You're as shameless as your father. Seeing that her tap was harmless, she breathed a sigh of relief and sat back down. Lucas, who had been peacefully eating his oatmeal, was not pleased. Hey, criticize the kid all you want, but why drag me into it? He swallowed his food, shot Caleb an appreciative glance, and huffed. Your mother doesn't know what she's talking about. Listen to me. Shameless is the only way to be. With that, Lucas pulled Lily right into his lap, making her gasp. See? Your mom complains about me being shameless all the time, but she still married me, didn't she? Girls, they say one thing and mean another. You get it, right? Caleb's eyes glazed over for a second, then flickered with a newfound glimmer of wisdom. Lily was mortified. She wanted to argue, but the truth was she even loved the shameless parts of him. The more she thought about it, the more flustered she got, feeling like she had to put up some resistance. But she also didn't want to leave his lap. Mom, you're not making a very strong case for yourself, Caleb observed, watching his mother get comfortable in his father's arms. As long as he could remember, Lily never had a backbone when it came to Lucas. She was always the easiest person in the world to win over. Your mom never had a backbone to begin with. Back in the day, she'd admit it all the time just so she could stick to my side. Lucas started, ready to launch into his greatest hits. That did it. Lily's backbone suddenly reappeared. She delivered a swift rocket headbutt to both father and son before stomping off, cheeks puffed, to wake up her daughter. At the table, the two men were left rubbing their heads. Caleb slid over to sit next to Lucas, suddenly looking bashful. Lucas glanced at him sideways. He knew exactly what this was about. He grinned wickedly. Ask away. You're trying to steal my best friend's daughter. I have to offer my full support. Caleb leaned in closer, whispering conspiratorially, Dad, how did you get Grandma Sophia to approve of you? Even though his dad spent most of his time trying to mess with him. On this, he needed an expert's advice. His sister was smart, but when it came to navigating the world, his dad was in another league. Your godmother doesn't like you? No, it's not that. It's mostly my godfather I'm worried about. Lucas leaned back, stroking his chin in thought for a long time before answering seriously. I can't help you there. Your grandmother adored me from the moment she met me. He had no experience winning over a mother-in-law. But as for a father-in-law, he might actually have a strategy for that. A devious smile spread across Lucas's face. Unfortunately, his method had one prerequisite that Caleb couldn't meet. That old bastard Jason had quit smoking 20 years ago and was healthier than ever. As Lucas was smirking to himself, Lily and Stella emerged from the bedroom. With their hair down, the mother and daughter looked strikingly similar. You could spot the family resemblance from a mile away, though Stella's perpetually drowsy eyes were a stark contrast to Lily's gentle warmth. Dad, you know I got a 1580, right? Stella said, stretching as she sat down, a yawn escaping her lips. She'd check her score when she woke up, but hadn't come out to announce it. No way. Before Lucas could speak, Caleb nearly jumped out of his chair. He grabbed Stella's head with both hands, examining her as if trying to figure out what made her different from a normal human. That's insane, he marveled, looking like he wanted to put his sister on a pedestal in the living room. Stella shot her brother a look that clearly said, You're an idiot. Then she glanced at Lucas, who just smiled and nodded. My daughter's a genius, he said softly. Last night, your mom was convinced you weren't her real kid. I was not, Lily protested, her cheeks puffed out as she glared at him. Stella sighed quietly. In sharp contrast to her ecstatic mother and brother, her father was, as always, unfazed. She knew that if she asked, he'd just say that as long as she and Caleb weren't causing trouble and were happy, nothing else mattered. That's how he had always been. It meant less pressure, but it also meant less validation. In her entire life, she'd never once seen him get truly excited and praise her. Stella forced a small smile, chiding herself for being so needy. Have you two thought about schools yet? Lucas asked. Caleb nodded seriously. My sister and I already talked it over. We're thinking of applying to UCLA. That way you and Mom can come visit. Lucas nodded. If Stella wants to, she can apply there too. You three have been joined at the hip since you were kids. I'll think about it. I haven't decided yet. With his son's plans set, Lucas wasn't worried about his daughter. A score like that meant she could go anywhere she wanted. If she had a dream, she could shoot for the Ivy League. If not, sticking with her brother and sister was fine too. As long as she did what she wanted, he'd be there to catch her if she fell. After breakfast, Lucas went with Lily to her shop for a while before heading home, thinking he might catch the little lamb trying to charm his little piglet. When he walked in, he found Caleb at Lily's desk, sketching on a tablet. He glanced around the living room. Stella and Natalie were nowhere to be seen. How come your sister isn't here? Lucas asked, puzzled. You'd think a young couple with their grades in and no more pressure would be inseparable. Why was the little lamb so quiet today? He remembered when he and Lily had first gotten together, they'd try to watch a movie on the couch and wake up when it was over, drool on the cushions, with no memory of the plot. This dumb kid wasn't even asking her out on a date. He was a disgrace to the Carter name. She went shopping with Stella, Caleb said, his eyes glued to the screen, completely focused. I thought they would have called you to be their pack mule. My sister did. My other sister didn't want me to. Caleb didn't even look up. Lucas grunted an "oh," then went to his room and came back with 2 bank cards. He prepared them in advance, one for each kid, with equal amounts. He'd been strict with their allowances to teach them self-control. Thankfully, with Lily as their role model, neither of them had grown into the spoiled brats he'd feared. From now on, they didn't need any more limits. He stood in front of Caleb and cleared his throat dramatically. So, you should know your old dad has made a little bit of money. I've been thinking you're older now, you know right from wrong, and you know making money isn't easy. Yeah, Dad, I know, Caleb said, proudly waving his stylus. That's why I'm going to be like Mom and earn my own spending money with my art. Lucas's eye twitched. Shouldn't a normal person's reaction be to ask their parents for more money? If you beg your dad, he might just give you a little extra. You guys already give me enough. You gave me thousands this morning. I have to support a family on my own someday, so I might as well get used to it now. Caleb grinned foolishly. He'd known this feeling since middle school, when he worked part-time jobs to take his sister out. Money you earned yourself felt 100 times better to spend than money you asked for. Looking at his son's determined face, Lucas felt it would be cruel to crush his spirit. He thought for a moment and slipped the card with the 6-figure balance back into his pocket. He had been planning to give it to the kid as a graduation present. Fine, go ahead and try to live off your godfather's money while you steal his little lamb. As Lucas was having this thought, the little lamb in question was dragging Stella through a shopping mall. Both girls were dressed casually in t-shirts and jeans, but their natural beauty was impossible to hide, drawing frequent glances from passersby. You got such a great score, so why do you still seem unhappy? Natalie asked, taking a sip of her bubble tea. You could tell Lily's mood by how puffed out her cheeks were. With Stella, it was all in her eyelids. The way they were drooping now, like she was about to fall asleep standing up, was a sure sign something was wrong. Natalie couldn't understand it. If she'd gotten that score, she'd have Vanessa bringing her tea on a silver platter while she lay in bed binging Game of Thrones. But here was Stella miserable. Sometimes, Natalie really didn't get what went on in her head. Unlike her, whose brain had only ever been filled with school and piano. What's my dumb little brother doing at home right now? I miss him. Stella's gaze drifted downward. My dad. I don't think he's ever really had any expectations for me. Or for my brother. How can you say that? Your dad is so good to you guys. He is, but how do I explain it? Stella started, then clicked her tongue and scratched her head, trying to find the right words. Sis, put yourself in my shoes. If you got a score like mine, but then applied to a school that only required a 1450 just to hang out with me and Caleb, would your parents kill you? Yes, Natalie said without hesitation. Vanessa and Jason would absolutely string her up. If Caleb hadn't worked his butt off senior year to catch up, she'd probably be grounded for life for intentionally tanking her potential. But my dad wouldn't. See what I mean? Natalie paused. Stella shrugged and fell silent. It had been like this her whole life. Any tiny bit of progress made their mom happy, but whether they did well or poorly, their dad was always the same. He never got overly excited when she aced a test, and when her brother's grades were at their worst, 40th in his class at one point, he never really got angry. Any other kid would have been grounded for a month. She wasn't stupid. She could see how much Lucas loved her, but this feeling of not being expected to achieve anything. It was hard to swallow. Natalie pulled Stella, who had zoned out and walked past the escalator, back toward it. But your dad did push your brother to study. That was because he didn't want Caleb to miss his chance with you. You think he didn't know about your little crush? Stella glanced at Natalie. If my brother had listened to him earlier, he wouldn't have had to kill himself senior year. Seeing her sister was convinced, Stella sighed again. It made sense that her dad didn't have high expectations. No matter how hard they tried, they'd probably never catch up to him. The internet never forgets. Unlike her oblivious brother, she knew things. For most people, getting into the University of Washington was something to brag about for a lifetime. But UW was still using her dad in their promotional materials. They'd even invited him to speak at a recent alumni event. The school was proud of him. Starting Polaris Interactive from scratch in college was already insane, but then he'd walked away from it all right when the company was at its peak. She and Caleb were just toddlers then, and her mom's coffee shop had just opened. The man had truly given up everything he could for his wife and kids. She thought about how lonely Natalie had been as a kid, playing in the park by herself, and then thought about how she used to suspect her own dad was unemployed. The sacrifices he'd made behind the scenes were unimaginable, but he never mentioned any of it. If she were as clueless as her brother and hadn't gone digging, she would have never known. Her mom used to have such a hard life, and now she was always smiling, adorable and sweet every day. That was the proof of her father's success. The mall's glass elevator carried them upward. Stella looked down at the people shrinking below, then lowered her head, a new resolve forming within her. She had to catch up to her father. She had to become even more amazing than him, so amazing that he would have no choice but to admit from the bottom of his heart that she was better. A small smile played on Stella's lips, the gloom in her eyes vanishing completely. This could be interesting. Natalie quietly scooted a few steps away. There was something about that faint smile that reminded her of her future father-in-law. It was identical. Lucas had been at an industry mixer with all the top players all afternoon. It wasn't until evening, when the sky had completely darkened, that he had a moment to check his phone. Just as he stepped out of the venue, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his wife. "Lily, if you're done with work, can you come home a little early?" "Lucas, what's up?" "Lily, Stella misses you." "Lucas, that girl would never say that out loud. You might as well tell me you saw a cat do a backflip." "Lily, okay, fine. I miss you." Lucas couldn't help but smile. "Silly goose. We've been married forever. Can't you learn to be a little more demanding? Just call me and yell, 'When the hell are you getting home?'" "Lily, I don't want to do that. I was worried you were busy." He canceled his dinner plans and headed home. Lily, who had been reading on the couch, immediately jumped into his arms. Just then, Stella walked out of her room. They both expected her to shy away from the PDA, as usual, but this time she walked right over, looking like she had something to say. Lily, who was sitting on Lucas's lap with her arms wrapped around his neck, quickly scrambled to sit beside him, pretending nothing had happened. "Mom, you don't have to do that. I've been watching you two my whole life," Stella said coolly. "Don't be fresh," Lily retorted, her face flushing. Lucas studied his daughter for a moment. "Something on your mind?" he asked gently. Stella hesitated for a long time before speaking. "Dad, when I graduate, can you give me Polaris? You can have it now if you want. Just don't run it into debt, and you can do whatever you want with it." Lucas paused. "But if I give you the company, I'll have to give your brother a lot of money. I have to keep things fair between you two." "I was just saying, I don't know anything yet." "Aren't you afraid I'll run it into the ground?" Stella muttered. "It's going to go under eventually. What's the difference whose watch it's on? Do you really think a gaming company can last forever?" Stella and Lily. The living room was quiet for a moment. Then Stella, who had spent her life looking perpetually bored, suddenly lifted her gaze, her eyes wide and clear. "Dad, I'm going to study abroad." Her voice and her gaze were uncharacteristically firm. "And when I come back, I'm taking over your company." After Stella's announcement, a long silence fell over the living room. Lucas and Lily stared at each other, wide-eyed, for what felt like an eternity. Lucas was the first to react. He didn't say anything. He just reached out and placed his hand on his daughter's forehead. After he was done, Lily took her turn. They took turns feeling her forehead, their expressions full of disbelief. "She doesn't have a fever," Lucas said, perplexed. This was the girl who would rather go without watermelon than walk to the kitchen to get it. Why on earth would she suddenly want to go abroad? Stella shrank away from their touch. "Damn, Mom, do you have to react like this? It's so nice having Mom and Dad to look out for you here. Why would you want to go suffer in a foreign country where you don't know anyone?" "Dad, that's exactly why I have to go," Stella said seriously. "Being at home is great, but I don't want to be taken care of forever." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Lucas fell silent for a moment, then just nodded, saying nothing more. Seeing her husband's quiet acceptance, Lily swallowed the words of persuasion she'd been about to say, looking at her daughter with a reluctance she couldn't hide. Lucas glanced at his daughter again. In a flash, he saw her as a little girl with a ponytail, a lollipop stick hanging from her mouth, her eyelids perpetually drooping. He blinked, and when he looked again, she was all grown up. Honestly, this had caught him completely off guard, leaving him feeling a bit lost. He'd never imagined that for all her laziness, his daughter would be the one to fly the farthest from the nest. A short while later, Caleb came home from his date. His reaction to the news was identical to his parents'. He reached out to feel Stella's forehead. A person who'd never been interested in anything suddenly wanting to go abroad. Was his sister delirious from fever? Stella angrily slapped his hand away and chased him around the living room until she landed a solid rocket headbutt. Natalie and I were planning a trip. I guess we'll have to cancel our tickets, Caleb grumbled as he returned to the dining table, rubbing his forehead. He was already starting to miss his sister. Is it really that big of a deal? It's not like I'm never coming back to Seattle after I graduate, Stella said, her brow furrowing. I'm going to study abroad, not to my deathbed. But you have to come back, Caleb said, his eyes turning red. Seriously? If I don't come back, where else would I go? Lucas ignored the sibling squabble and went to open a bottle of red wine. Beer was too filling, and the kids couldn't handle hard liquor, so this was just right. He poured glasses for both of them, handed them over, and then raised his own. This is to congratulate you both on finding what you want to do. You've really grown up in the blink of an eye. Is Mom not drinking? Stella asked, holding her glass and noticing the odd expression on Lily's face. Your mom can't handle alcohol. She can have a Coke, Lucas said, his face impassive. In all these years, the goofball had only gotten drunk a handful of times, and each one had left an indelible scar on his psyche. She turned into a bona fide ice queen, a dangerously flirty one. He was genuinely afraid that if Lily drank too much, she'd pin him to the bed and they'd end up with another kid. Lily pressed her lips together tightly, lowering her face in guilt, too embarrassed to say a word. She dutifully went and got herself a can of Coke, raising it next to Lucas's glass. Both of his kids were leaving. The trip to Los Angeles was a 4-hour train ride, or a little under 2 hours by plane, still not close. And Stella. With her, they'd have to deal with time zones just to talk. Lucas gazed at his children for a long moment, sighing quietly to himself, a wave of melancholy washing over him. The kids were grown. It was time for them to leave the nest. Life out there won't be as easy as it is at home. You'll face more setbacks and hardships than opportunities. You'll hit walls that feel like the end of the world, but when you get to my age and look back, you'll see they were just bumps in the road. Back in the day, when Polaris almost went under, your mom was ready to sleep on the streets with me. You're talking nonsense again, Lily chided, tapping him lightly. Stella pouted. Dad, I know all that. At this point, you might as well tell us how you and Mom really got together. Lucas and Lily glanced at each other, their eyes filled with a shared, gentle warmth. Us. The family of four had a dinner that felt much like any other, except that Lucas, for the first time, talked at length about his experiences and philosophies on life. It was the first time he'd ever been so talkative. No matter how old they got, they were still kids in his eyes, and, at a time like this, he felt an overwhelming need to impart every piece of advice he could. He really didn't want them to go. Of course, the thought of having the house to themselves again also made him genuinely happy. Stella took after Lucas in many ways. Before doing anything, she would research every last detail. The gaming landscape had changed dramatically, and Polaris had to pivot quickly to maintain its top spot in the country and have any chance of growing further. Lucas's mind could still keep up with the market, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. This was a job for her. By early August, Stella had packed everything and was ready to leave early to get settled. Lucas and Lily wanted to go with her, but she politely declined. When Vanessa heard, she came over specifically to teach her goddaughter some self-defense moves. Lucas didn't refuse, but he secretly thought Stella didn't need it. The girl could outsmart most people, and for those who wouldn't listen to reason, she could still communicate with her head by delivering a swift headbutt. On the day of her departure, a large crowd had gathered at the airport entrance. After all, she had 2 sets of godparents, plus grandparents on both sides. Stella looked around, and her eyelids drooped even lower. She really should have just slipped away quietly. She gave a wry smile and reached out to wipe a tear from Lily's eye. Mom, what century is this? If you miss me, just FaceTime me, or you can fly over and visit. But I'm still going to miss you. Lily clung to Stella's hand, refusing to let go. The two of them talked the longest. It wasn't until Lucas pulled Lily away that Natalie finally got a chance to step forward. You're not like your brother. You don't need me to lecture you. Natalie considered her words carefully, finally offering a small smile and 3 simple words. Keep in touch. She and Stella had been playing together since they could remember. There was so much she wanted to say, but she knew, in this setting, she shouldn't take up too much time. Her own life experiences had made her far more mature than her peers. Stella saw the redness in Natalie's eyes and managed a small hum. This was the first time the 3 of them had ever been separated. She didn't dare look any longer, afraid she'd lose her nerve to leave. Bro, even if our sister doesn't want to hit you, don't make her angry. She likes you way more than you think, Stella said, turning to her brother. Caleb nodded seriously. Think things through, no matter what happens. If you're really stuck, call me or call Dad. Call home often. You're a grown-up now, so remember to bring something back when you visit. And, wait, Caleb interrupted, unable to take any more. Aren't I the one seeing you off? Seeing Natalie trying to stifle a laugh nearby, Caleb felt even more frustrated. Why did his sister always treat him like an idiot? Fine, fine, Stella said, waving a dismissive hand, her energy already spent. She turned to Lucas. Lucas was taken aback. In scenes like this, the father rarely had a major role. Dad, I'm going, she said softly. Take care of yourself out there. If anything happens, you call me. Stella looked at him for a long moment, then at Lily, before grabbing her suitcase and turning away. Her long hair cascaded down her back, her silhouette firm and confident as she walked away. As the group left the airport, Caleb dutifully went around saying goodbye to everyone, so Lucas and Lily headed back to the car first. Once it was just the two of them, the tears that had been welling in Lily's eyes finally spilled over. Crybaby, you didn't expect the kids to stay by your side forever, did you? Lucas reached out, pinching her cheek and gently wiping away the tears with his thumb. But Stella is still so young. I actually think that girl is a lot more mature than we give her credit for. She's still little, Lily retorted, a rare act of defiance. She suddenly threw herself forward, burying her face in his chest, her body shaking with sobs. The day Stella first said, Mama, it feels like it was just yesterday. Lucas had been holding it together, but hearing that, he felt a lump form in his throat. He tilted his head back for a moment before silently starting the engine and waving for Caleb to get in. By September, the last little third wheel in the house was also leaving for college. When they sent Stella off, Lucas had been worried because she was going to a foreign country all alone. When they sent Caleb off, he was even more worried because Caleb was going with a beautiful young girlfriend. That little punk and Natalie would be out there with no one to supervise them, a world away from home. God only knows what kind of trouble they get into. And he was not ready to be a grandpa yet. Let your old dad drive you. It's okay, Dad. I'm a grown-up now. Early that morning, Lucas and Caleb were standing at the door, locked in a dramatic back and forth, both wearing expressions of heartfelt reluctance. Lily stood by, watching the tender scene of father-son affection without a word. The world's smartest lillipad had already seen through it all. The truth was, one of them couldn't be bothered to make the trip, and the other was dying to start his life with his girlfriend. They both knew exactly what the other was thinking, but were still putting on this insincere show. My sister already told her parents she doesn't need anyone to see her off, and she's a girl, Caleb finally said, playing his last card. Your mom and I aren't seeing you off. We're just catching a ride. We won't be in your way. Caleb, how could he just drop the act like that? At first, Caleb hadn't believed him. He thought Lucas and Lily secretly wanted to see him off, and that the vacation was just an excuse. But they hadn't even made it out of the train station before they vanished. He and Natalie looked around the platform for a few minutes before he angrily pulled out his phone. Caleb, Dad, where did you and Mom go? Lucas, we got lost. Sad. JPG Lucas, you and your sister should go get registered. It's going to get crowded soon. I'll believe that when pigs fly. Just wait. When I'm on break, I'm taking my sister on a trip, and you won't get to see her at all. Caleb looked at the mountain of luggage behind him and Natalie, then silently took her soft, slender hand in his. He got him the private time he wanted, so why was he suddenly feeling so melancholy? As soon as they left the station, they were greeted by a group of enthusiastic UCLA volunteers in school-crested vests and red caps, who eagerly guided them toward a dedicated shuttle bus. Is this your sister? It's so impressive you both got in here together, one of the chatty upperclassmen remarked, his interest piqued by the ridiculously good-looking pair. This is my girlfriend, Caleb said, lifting their intertwined hands. But I heard you call her sis. She's my sister, and my girlfriend. The upperclassmen fell silent. These two were into some weird stuff, and the guy had no awareness at all. His girlfriend was clearly exhausted after just a few steps, leaning on him for support, and he wasn't even offering to carry her bags. Then he watched as Natalie walked up to a flight of stairs, casually lifted a heavy suitcase in each hand, and strode up without breaking a sweat. Registration was a breeze. By the time they finished lunch, they were already wandering aimlessly around campus. Stella, bro, how's the school? Caleb, it's nice. Stella, bro, when are you going to get smarter? Did you really think I stayed up late to ask you how the school is just to get those two words? Only then did she receive a few photos from her brother, which somewhat eased the sting of not being there with them. Stella, Mom and Dad didn't see you off? Caleb, well, halfway. Stella, what do you mean, halfway? Caleb, the second they got to LA, they went sightseeing. They didn't even set foot on campus. Caleb, crying alligator. JPG Stella. Wow. While Caleb was pouring out his woes over text, the parent-abandoning couple was eating at a street-side taco truck. The Griffith Observatory hadn't been as exciting as they'd hoped, and now they were looking for something else to do. We came at the wrong time. We should have waited for this kid to explore the area with his girlfriend. Then we could just ask him where to go, Lucas said, putting down his phone with a sigh. Searching for travel guides was more exhausting than the travel itself. It was time for Caleb to be useful. Lily was hunched over her food, her cheeks puffed out like a hamster's. She looked up at him, impossibly cute. Master Carter never missed a moment like this. He snapped a quick picture. Good thing we haven't been to see Stella yet. We'll have time to get visas and go visit. Lily. This man was a pretty terrible father sometimes. With both kids gone, the house suddenly felt empty and quiet. No Stella lying on the couch like a lazy fish. No Caleb running over to ask dumb questions. The four-bedroom house, which had never felt particularly large, now seemed vast and cavernous. One afternoon, Lily came home from the shop. "What do you want for lunch?" she asked cheerfully, only to find Lucas fast asleep on the sofa. She quietly tiptoed into the bedroom for a blanket, then turned off the phone that was still playing a video beside him. But the silence woke him up. "Why'd you turn it off, you silly goose?" "I was listening to that." "Huh." Lily blinked. "But you were asleep." "I wasn't asleep. I was listening." "You were either asleep, or you heard me call you and deliberately ignored me." Lily was stunned by her own cleverness. "There, now you have to admit to one of them. My brain and mouth were asleep. My ears weren't." Lily decided to ignore him. Lucas opened his eyes and saw the blanket on top of him. He smiled and pulled her into his arms. For all her protests, she never really struggled. They cuddled for a while before Lily suddenly said, "I was thinking, maybe I should close the coffee shop. I've had it for a long time now. Why the sudden change?" Lily's eyes crinkled into a smile. "I'm done with it. All my dreams have already come true." Lucas nodded thoughtfully, then froze. "So what do you want to do next?" Well, I'm a little older. Maybe I'll be a teacher." "An art teacher?" Lily paused, seeing the smile spread across Lucas's face. "What are you smiling at?" I'm suddenly getting a little excited. Lucas, even after a retaliatory rocket headbutt, was incorrigible. He held Lily close, his hands roaming mischievously. "After all," he purred, "I was your very first student." Lily clearly knew what he was alluding to. A blush crept up her cheeks, and she quickly buried her face in his neck. Even after all these years, it was still embarrassing when he acted like such a leck. "So where does Ms. Thompson want to teach?" Lucas couldn't help but ask. He needed to know her plans, so he could pave the way if necessary. His goofball would be an incredible elementary school teacher, but teaching at the college level. She had the reputation and the talent, but she was self-taught, with no formal degrees. That would require some prep work. "We'll talk about that when I'm old," Lily said, planting a soft kiss on his neck. "Right now, I just want to do whatever you want to do." "I don't really want to do anything," Lucas said offhandedly, still surprised by her desire to teach. Maybe it was because her mother, Sophia, had worked herself to the bone when her leg was injured, but his goofy wife truly couldn't sit still. Even at 40, she was bursting with energy. "Think about it. You've been with me for so long. It's my turn to be with you," Lily said, ticking off options on her fingers. "Playing video games, fishing, or traveling. Whatever you want, I'm in." Lucas buried his face in her neck, inhaling her scent. He paused. "We'll see. There's nothing you want to do." "No, I want to do all of it." As the days passed and they got older, the big house felt more and more awkward. But a one-bedroom was too small. So Lucas decided to buy a two-bedroom place. He ran it by Lily, and they were instantly on the same page. They ended up buying the old apartment they used to rent. The old complex had been renovated at some point, but the layout was still the same, exactly as they remembered it. They were living the same life they had before the kids were born. It was wonderfully nostalgic. One evening, for the first time in ages, the couple had a fight. Well, not really a fight. When Lily got angry, it was hardly a storm. The reason? He'd jumped into the water while fishing to save someone. "You promised me that if it ever happened again, you'd call 911. Lily said, her eyes red, after she'd helped him shower and change. He looked like he was about to go under. "The reservoir is so remote, by the time help arrived, it would have been too late." Lucas scratched his head. "See? I'm fine, not a scratch on me." He kept talking, but not a single word was what she wanted to hear. She wiped her tears, went into the bedroom, and locked the door. Lucas's eyes widened. He hurried after her. "You'd really make me sleep on the couch?" "I couldn't. So you can sleep in the guest room." Lucas sighed. This was clearly the one and only line he was absolutely not allowed to cross. But even now, how had this goofball still not learned how to be properly angry? He glanced at the guest room, stroking his chin in thought. Master Carter was not about to spend the night alone. A little while later, Lily was sitting on the bed, hugging her knees, occasionally wiping tears with the back of her hand like a kicked puppy. There was a soft knock on the door, followed by Lucas's voice. "Lily." She sniffled. What? Open the door. After a moment's thought, she slowly walked to the door. She was still mad, of course, but she could never truly shut him out. Cheeks puffed, she pulled the door open and glared at him. Lucas's gaze, however, was sincere. Can you let your husband sleep in here tonight? Otherwise, I'll roast to death. Why? Lily tilted her head. Lucas deliberately dropped a few small screws on the floor in front of her, then broke into a wicked grin. The AC in my room is broken. You. Lily froze. Then an involuntary smile spread across her face. Remembering she was supposed to be angry, she quickly covered her mouth with her hand and turned away. But the memories came flooding back, and she couldn't stop the laugh that escaped. Wiping away tears, she giggled and gave him a light tap. Jerk. The first semester of college was pure bliss for Caleb. Though he and Natalie were new as a couple, they had grown up together and knew each other inside and out, so they rarely fought. Rarely, but not never. It was a few days before winter break. It's just switching your major, not your whole school, Natalie said patiently as they walked across campus. The art department has so many girls. You think I want you over there? But you have a gift for drawing. You shouldn't waste it. Caleb shook his head, uncharacteristically stubborn. But then we won't be in the same classes. How did I never realize how stubborn you are? Natalie's eyes fell on a nearby badminton court. She stopped walking. Fine, let's play. Winner decides. Deal. As she spoke, she pulled her long hair into a ponytail, looking every bit the vibrant, energetic college student. Caleb considered it, then nodded firmly. An hour later, they still hadn't declared a winner. Caleb was gasping for air, his hands on his knees. Sis, another round. Natalie was panting, her jaw clenched. She shouldn't have dragged him along on her workouts all these years. She'd been training in Taekwondo with her mom since she was a kid. If she couldn't outlast this dumb kid, she might as well go drown herself in a river. She threw down her racket, grabbed Caleb's hand, and started walking. It's been a tie this whole time. What's the point of another round? We're moving on to the second half. Caleb blinked. Where are we going for the second half? A hotel. Huh? Wait a minute. As winter break approached, parents everywhere were eagerly awaiting their children's return, despite knowing they'd be sick of them within a few days. Lucas and Lily were the opposite. They were currently in Hawaii. Even in January, Hawaii was warm, the bright sun beating down on their skin. The turquoise ocean stretched to the horizon, its waves crashing rhythmically against the shore. Lucas stood by the water, checking the date on his phone. He had a vague feeling that break was starting soon. He walked over and gently tapped Lily on the shoulder. She was engrossed in catching crabs and looked up, puzzled. What's up? Sound out our son. Ask him if he's going on a trip when he's coming back. We need to prepare, Lucas whispered. They've been away from home for over 2 months. Stella had already said she wasn't coming back for the holidays, which left only one little third wheel to deal with. The call connected quickly. Lily took a deep breath, poking a small crab on the beach with her finger as she asked sheepishly, Caleb, sweetie, when are you coming home? Lucas watched from his side. He glanced at the ocean for a second, then felt Lily poking him. He looked down to see her biting her lip, her eyes red and welling with tears. He was confused until she held up her finger, where a tiny crab was dangling, swinging in the air as her hand trembled. Lucas almost burst out laughing. That just made Lily want to cry more. He saw the red mark on her finger and realized it wasn't a joke. He quickly plunged her hand into the water, and the crab let go. He then snatched it out of the sand and crushed it. When they both came to their senses, they heard a goofy laugh from the phone. I knew you guys missed me. Yes, your father and I miss you so much, Lily said, her face flushed and her voice thick with unshed tears. Mom, why are you crying? Your dad, Lily sniffled, about to tattle on Lucas for laughing at her, but a cold glare from him made her quickly change her tune. Because I miss you. Caleb's excited voice immediately came through the phone. Don't cry. I already bought my ticket. I'll be home tomorrow. Why are you coming back so early? Take your sister out somewhere now that you have a break. If you need money, let me know, Lucas muttered under his breath. This little punk doesn't even know how to steal cabbage. Half a year after we got together, I was already tricking Lily into moving in with me. What's he doing running home the second break starts? I have money. I just miss you guys. You miss. Lucas trailed off. A son who wanted to come home to see his family was something to be praised, wasn't it? I'll pick you up at the station tomorrow, then, he said, forced to keep up the act. The kid would never guess that he and Lily were still living it up in Hawaii. No need. After a bit more back and forth, Lucas hung up and saw Lily staring at him, biting her lip. What do we do? She asked timidly. Caleb missed them so much, and here they were on vacation. He'd be so angry if he found out. She never should have come to Hawaii to catch crabs. Ever since their wedding photos here, she'd dreamed of coming back. Last time, they had to let them all go. This time, she'd wanted to catch enough to cook. Lucas saw Lily's panicked expression, which reminded him of himself as a kid when his parents came home, and he realized the TV was still warm. "Don't panic. Let me check something," he said calmly, pulling his phone out again. "Check what?" "Train tickets from LA to Seattle. The kid's on a budget, so he's not flying. We'll take the first flight back tomorrow morning. We should be able to make it." Lily's eyes filled with adoration for her husband. They were on a flight back to Seattle before dawn. The house had been empty for 2 months and was covered in dust. If they didn't clean up, they'd be exposed. Then Caleb would come home and find that not only had his mother not been pining for him, but she and his father had been having the time of their lives. That would be awkward. Caleb arrived in the evening. As soon as he walked in, before he even had a chance to look at their new house, he rushed over to them. "Damn, Mom, it's been so long. Did you miss me?" Lucas and Lily said in unison, nodding after a quick glance at each other. "Your mom was so excited last night, she couldn't sleep. Look at the dark circles under her eyes," Lucas added, his face a perfect mask of sincerity. Caleb leaned in to look at Lily. It was true. He was suddenly touched. His parents might act like their kids were an afterthought, but deep down, they really did love him. The dark circles were actually from waiting for their red-eye flight, but Caleb's scrutiny made Lily feel guilty. She quickly tucked a stray hair behind her ear and stood up. "You must be hungry. I'll go make you dinner." But Caleb pressed her back down onto the couch. "I'll cook today. I learned over the last 6 months. Let me show you what I can do." Lily tilted her head, stunned. Lucas felt like something was off, but couldn't quite put his finger on it. As Caleb hummed his way into the kitchen, Lily snuggled into Lucas's arms, smiling. "Caleb has grown up so much in college. Look at you. You're so easy to please." As they were talking, Caleb stormed out of the kitchen. "Dad, Mom, why isn't there even any salt in the house? And the sesame paste is a solid brick." Lucas was at a loss for words. Beside him, Lily simply buried her face in his chest and refused to speak. "Too excited to sleep last night, huh? You two couldn't sleep because you were rushing back to put on a show, weren't you?" Caleb stood before them. "I came home early thinking you'd be moved, but you were too busy having your own vacation." "We were moved. We were very moved," Lucas said, clearing his throat. He turned to Lily. "Lily, quick, cry for him." As Lily was looking utterly guilty, Lucas finally figured out what had been bothering him. He glanced at her. She still hadn't realized a thing. "Sigh, my silly wife." He looked up, his eyes locking onto his son's. Caleb, for some reason, felt a pang of guilt and averted his gaze. This little punk had never cooked a meal in his life. He'd never even learned. How did he suddenly pick it up in college? And where would he have learned? A dorm room doesn't exactly come with a full kitchen. "Did you and your sister actually stay in the dorms at school?" he asked, his voice cold. Caleb swallowed nervously. "Dad, how about I pretend you and Mom were home this whole time? And you pretend I was in the dorms, okay?" Stella didn't come home for the holidays this year. She was alone abroad. It was bound to be a little lonely in new country, but she was used to it. Early in the morning, she went to the supermarket for some sliced meat and vegetables to make herself a small hot pot. A little celebration, and something to show Lucas and Lily when they inevitably FaceTimed her. She'd been surprised to find that she could not only get hot pot base here, but even Lao Gone Ma Chili Crisp. As she was about to enter her apartment building, a guy who had been following her called out. "Can I help you?" she asked, stopping and turning around, her expression weary. I saw you and thought you were really pretty. I was hoping we could be friends." The guy held up his phone. "We're both from the same country. We could exchange numbers, help each other out. If you swear on your life you'll never try anything more, then I'll give it to you. You're not going to make many friends that way. I'm here on my parents' dime to study, not to make friends," Stella said, tapping her temple. "I'm also mentally unstable. I suggest you go bother someone else." The guy was taken aback by her dead serious expression. "Really? That must be tough." "Thanks," Stella said with a polite smile, then turned and walked away without a backward glance. She lived in a small one-bedroom apartment. It wasn't spacious, but it wasn't cramped either. For a minimalist like her, any unnecessary item was just another burden. After putting the groceries in the fridge, she sat on the couch, trying to compose herself before calling Lily. It was the holidays. Her mom was bound to cry, and she was worried that seeing her mom cry would make her cry too. And if she cried, it was all over. Her dad would be on the next flight over. Just as she was thinking this, there was a soft knock on the door. "Who is it?" She looked through the peephole and saw a middle-aged woman she didn't recognize. The woman clicked her tongue. "It's hard to explain. Just open the door. I'm not going to eat you." Seeing no one else around, Stella slowly opened the door and studied the woman. She's beautiful. For some reason, that was the only thought in her mind. Stunned, the woman asked with a smile. Stella didn't deny it, just nodded. A little. Scarlett Montgomery was intrigued. She gave Stella a wicked grin. Who's prettier, me or your mom? My mom. Scarlett rolled her eyes and huffed. Why didn't you go home for the holidays? It's not like you can't afford the ticket. Next year, Stella cleared a pillow off the couch to make room for her. I just finally got used to not being homesick. If I go home and see my parents, I'll have to start all over again. My dad sent you? Stella asked as she poured a glass of water. This woman knew her exact address and was acting way too familiar. She had to be a friend of her parents. Curiosity brought me here. I know this area well. Now go get changed. Your auntie is taking you out for a holiday dinner. Thank you, auntie, but I'm not going. Scarlett secretly clenched her jaw. I came all the way back to the country and made a special trip to see you, and this is the reception I get. She really is Lucas's daughter, just as annoying as her father. After a moment's thought, a new idea struck her. Aren't you curious why a total stranger would come here to look after you? Why? Scarlett put on a dramatic show of sniffing back tears. Because your father is a monster. Stella's interest was suddenly piqued. She looked at the woman's gorgeous face and was even more intrigued. Is this something I'm allowed to hear? Seeing the stubborn girl had finally taken a bait, Scarlett put her sunglasses back on, stood up, and gestured toward the door with her chin. Let's go. I'm taking you out to eat. Time has a way of slipping away when you're not looking, only to pop back up later to remind you just how far it's gone. After a heavy downpour, Seattle had transformed into a furnace, the air thick and muggy. It was the beginning of summer again. After launching one last nominated AAA game, Jason Miller and Leo Jenkins had both retired to roles behind the scenes, leaving the entire weight of Polaris Interactive on Stella's shoulders. Since returning from abroad, she had successfully navigated the company through a major pivot to align with the market. Lucas thought it was for the best. They were all in their 40s now. Honestly, they weren't really in touch with the times anymore. They didn't know what the younger generation wanted. Building an empire was hard, but defending one was just as difficult. When he started from scratch, he never had to worry about winning over his employees. Stella did. His daughter was truly better than him. As he thought this, he glanced over at her. A few years abroad hadn't changed her much. She was sprawled on the couch, lazily scrolling through her phone, her hair unwashed, yawning every few minutes. Her employees would never in a million years guess that their decisive, trailblazing boss was such a slob at home. Her young assistant had just called him in a panic, crying because she couldn't find her boss before a major meeting. You're the CEO of a company, and your subordinates can never find you. What kind of example is that? Lucas chided, conveniently forgetting he had been the exact same way. Relax, relax. A company is like code. If it runs, don't mess with it, Stella mumbled, rubbing her eyes. I just need to steer the ship in the right direction. Lucas chuckled. It was like looking in a mirror. It seemed his daughter knew she shouldn't be a third wheel, so she lived nearby and came over for dinner every day. After eating, she'd sometimes help with the dishes and sometimes just leave. Other times, like today, she'd linger. Lucas liked the arrangement. No third wheel, but the house didn't feel too empty. A long while later, as Lucas was staring at his phone, he sensed a figure standing in front of him. He looked up to see Lily, her hands behind her back, smiling sweetly at him. What's up? He asked. Can we go climb Mount Rainier? If you want to go, we'll go, Lucas said, getting up without a second thought. I'll ask the old folks if they want to come. He hadn't seen them in a few days anyway. Dad, you guys should come too. We can just take the gondola up, he said. When he got to his parents' house, only Robert Carter was home. I'm too old for that nonsense, Robert said, waving a dismissive hand as he put on his reading glasses and squinted at his book. Lucas looked around like a lost puppy. Where's Mom? His mother, Emily, was a force of nature. She was busier in retirement than she'd been while working. You had to call ahead if you wanted to see her. She's off playing mahjong with Lily's mom and your sister. The old lady never sits still, just running around having fun. You'd better hope Mom doesn't hear you say that. Lucas regretted not recording his father's words. All she does these days is play mahjong. Your dad can outrun her now. Robert gave him a thumbs up, a smug grin spreading across his face, the wrinkles around his eyes crinkling with joy. Caleb not back yet? The old man asked. Lucas shook his head. Nope. His wife is in Vienna for some piano concert, and he went with her. Said he was going to put on an art exhibition at the same time. It's all stuff I don't understand. The two of them, one in music and one in art, were a surprisingly good match. And Stella's company is doing so well. These kids are really something, Robert said, closing his book with a sigh of contentment. If only Caleb would have a kid soon. That would be even better. He'd have to get Emily to put some pressure on them. She was good at that. What, is your son not something? Lucas protested. No matter how successful those two are, I'm the one who made them. Setting aside the facts, don't I deserve a little credit? Robert laughed and patted his head. My son is the best of all. Satisfied, Lucas grinned and said his goodbyes. Not only had he come empty-handed, but he'd also swiped 2 bottles of expensive whiskey on his way out. Once Caleb and Natalie had rushed back from their travels, the whole group descended on Mount Rainier. Lucas had been too lazy to hike it all those years ago, and he was even lazier now. While the younger generation started the slow ascent from the base, Lily feigned exhaustion and pulled him onto the gondola with her. The summit was shrouded in mist. They walked hand in hand, strolling leisurely. Along the way, Lucas's gaze kept sweeping over their surroundings, searching for traces of the past that time hadn't erased. 20-some years was enough time for him to turn that shy, timid goofball into the vibrant, lovely woman she was today. It was also enough time for the mountain to become completely unrecognizable to him. Hey, honey, what did you wish for back then? Lucas asked, squeezing Lily's hand as they walked along a flatter path. It's been so many years. You have to tell me now. He had finally asked the question that had plagued him for decades. Lily was surprised he still remembered. She paused, then smiled at him. I brought you all the way back here. You still can't guess. She stood on her toes, whispering playfully in his ear. Mastercarder? Lucas's face flushed. There's no Mastercarder, he mumbled. Just the last fantasy of a frog before he got boiled. His words sent Lily into a fit of giggles. She linked her arm tightly through his, and they continued their slow walk, deliberately trying to make time itself slow down. Looking at the mist swirling around the summit, the memories of all these years flashed before her eyes. In the blink of an eye, both their children had successful careers, and Caleb was already married. Lily felt a sense of disorientation. How had time passed so quickly? It felt like just yesterday she was in that old apartment, engaged in a battle of wits with Lucas. From the moment they met, he was tricking her into wearing the drama club costume, into tutoring his little sister Emma for spending money, into letting him secretly pay for her mother's surgery. He tricked her into holding his hand on their first movie date, into taking a nap at his apartment, and eventually into his bed. Thinking back, had he ever stopped tricking her? How annoying. And then, the world's smartest Lillipad had a moment of carelessness and was tricked into having twins. 2 wonderful, successful children. A smile touched the corners of Lily's eyes. She may have been duped a lot, but she was so incredibly happy. Compared to this, all the hardships she'd endured before felt like nothing. They were so distant now, she could barely remember them. Back when she was at her lowest, this man had suddenly appeared and told her, life is actually beautiful, and I'm going to show you. With a wave of his hand, Lucas had promised her the world, and he had delivered. He gave her all the beauty in his life, and she gave him every last flutter of her heart. Can I kiss you? Lily asked, smiling. Shameless, Lucas said, then took off running. He let Lily chase him, and just as the goofball was about to pounce, he pointed to the trees in the distance and yelled, Look, a deer! He was too old for this level of rocket headbutt, but he just couldn't resist teasing her. Lily, of course, turned to look, completely forgetting she was chasing him, and crashed right into his chest. What's wrong? Lucas asked, seeing her brow furrow. I think I twisted my ankle, Lily said, her cheeks puffed. But it seems okay. I told you not to chase me. Lucas shrugged, helping her to a bench. It would have been fine if you'd just let me hit you. Is that how a person talks? Lucas borrowed a first aid kit from a park ranger, and by the time he got back, the younger group had arrived at the summit. Clearly, they had given up too. I'll put on for Mom, Caleb offered, seeing Lucas kneeling to apply the ointment. Get lost. This is a job only your dad can do, Lucas said, waving him away as he carefully inspected Lily's ankle for any swelling. Then Natalie and I will go to the shrine and pray for a grandchild for you, Caleb announced, earning a sharp pinch from a blushing Natalie. Go on, go on. It's very lucky here, Lily said with a small smile, forgetting she was currently injured. I'm warning you now. Don't expect your mother and me to babysit, Lucas grumbled, then shot Lily a wicked grin. Your mom will be too busy spending time with me. Lily shyly turned her head away. At her age, saying such things in front of the kids. But despite her thoughts, a smile crept on her lips. Got it, Caleb said, smiling at his wife. Natalie wanted to roll her eyes, but she couldn't help but smile back at him. As the 2 young people walked away hand in hand, Lucas turned his attention back to carefully applying the ointment to Lily's ankle. You're going to be a grandmother in a few years, and you're still such a dork, he muttered. That made Lily feel even more wronged. It's your fault. You tricked me and said there was a deer, so I ran too fast. How was I supposed to know you'd believe that? Lucas laughed. Of course I believe you, Lily said, pouting as he laughed even harder. You've been tricking me for most of my life. You jerk. Lucas looked up and gently pinched her cheek to silence her. Lily squinted her eyes in mock protest, but immediately quieted down. Life had been unkind to this goofball in the beginning, but the years had been exceptionally gentle. It was as if she never aged, still as beautiful as ever, though a single white hair at her temple betrayed the fact that she was no longer young. Lucas silently plucked the white hair and watched as the wind carried it from his palm. He sighed. It felt like just yesterday that the two of them had come here to climb this mountain, but that was over 20 years ago. Back then, they were just kids falling in love. Now, their own children were getting married and starting careers. What are you thinking about? Lily asked. I was thinking. Lucas's gaze returned to Lily's face. He looked into her gem-like eyes and was suddenly lost for words. A gentle breeze swept across the mountain, lifting the soft strands of hair from her face. Even after all these years, her eyes were still as clear and beautiful as they were on the night the wind had first blown her bangs aside, allowing him to truly see them. Lucas's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, it was as if he was back on that night, the night they first met. That night, in Lily's eyes, he had seen skyscrapers, a sky full of stars, and himself. Now, in her clear, bright gaze, he saw himself as a young man once more. Lily's eyes were already moist, her pupils trembling. She was clearly remembering the same thing. This time, she spoke first, slowly reaching out to cup his face in her palm. You know, I wish time could move a little slower. A lifetime felt too short to love someone this much. Lucas just smiled, holding her gaze. After a moment, he let out a short, huffed laugh. Doesn't matter. I'll just trick you again in the next life. Lily blinked, wiped away a tear, and started to laugh. Then she threw herself into his arms. Pervert. Thank you for stumbling into my life on that early spring night. The end.